Hey y'all, hey, how you doing? Okay, so let's talk about Nottoway Plantation. So this building here is or actually was a plantation house, right? It was formerly known as Nottoway Plantation, but nowadays known as Nottoway Resort, which in itself is despicable. Anyway, so it was a historic plantation house located near White Castle, Louisiana. Okay. Um, it was built for a slave owner named John Hamden Randolph, and it was built in 1859. It was 53,000 square feet. My God, that is huge. Okay, and it was the largest surviving antebellum plantation house in the southern United States until it was destroyed by a fire last week, May 15th, 2025. Okay, 051525. Interesting. Um, yeah, so let's talk about it. This has made the news, okay? A lot of people are celebrating, right? They're saying that this burning down was supernatural, right? The ancestors prompted it to be burnt down. Um a lot of people here I'm from the Northeast, right, in the United States. A lot of us don't know what a slave plantation is. We don't have that in the New York in the not that I know of. We don't have that in New York, New Jersey, Mass, Connecticut. That's mostly located in the South because as we know in American history, slavery took place mostly in the southeast, right? Mississippi, Alabama, I believe, I want to say Florida, maybe, Louisiana. That area was a hub, and Virginia. Can't forget Virginia, too, was a hub for slavery. And so I'm going to just place a few videos that can better explain a lot of the history with slave plantations. A lot of them now have become, like the name denotes, resorts, right? And this is why I will forever maintain that most white people are racist and they're just not being honest. I'm sorry to say it, it's true. Most white people in this country are prejudiced, are racist, because you know why? They are the ones keeping these plantations alive and in business. These plantations are still making money and profiting on the blacks of slave labor because it was slaves that built this 53,000 square foot plantation. And they are all over the South. All over. There a lot of them serve as museums. People go to learn about history. I remember when I was watching Real Housewives of Potomac, and Giselle's father took her and I believe Candace to go visit the plantation that their family members, their ancestors were enslaved on, right? A lot of these buildings now are museums. Black people may want to go and learn and to, I guess get a feel for what their ancestors went through. I don't believe, unless a white person is sympathetic, why the fuck are you going to visit a plantation? Do you know what they're doing on these plantations? They're having their wedding ceremonies and receptions. That's a huge thing in the South for white women. I don't know about any black people, but I've heard of white women having their weddings, parties. People have like balls. It's like they want to relive the whole antebellum experience. They love the antebellum aesthetic, if you will. And I know in their mind they're thinking about ball gowns and how life was and being a Southern belle. But what you need to think about are the people who were struggling around that time, who were being worked to the death of them, just so those white slave owners and their families can live that antebellum way, that antebellum life. And again, I can't, I've done my history, I've done my research to understand um these plantations and what they represent. But, not all Black people, I guess, have been in a plantation. Not all. I'm Haitian, and a lot of the plantations, we call it habitation. In Haiti, we own them. I don't know if any Black people in the States own the plantations where their families were enslaved. In Haiti, they turned into little countryside towns, and a lot of times our families own the plantations because we either drove out the slave owner, or the slave owner just stayed and had kids, and the slave owner themselves absorbed into the community. So they basically turned they procreated with the slaves, and they eventually turned Black. Like, there's no pure slave owning whites in Haiti. They either fled, left it behind, or just they lived there with their offspring. That's what happened in the case of my dad. My dad still owns the plantation. He built it up after the earthquake, and now his family lives there. My mom, same thing with her. She doesn't own it, but I guess someone older in the family owns their family plot. They call it like a plot habitation, laku, whatever have you. But I feel like it's different in the United States. For you in the United States to get a feel for what the plantation life, you have to go basically on a tour, on a museum tour, quote unquote museum tour. And a lot of these people are lying. From the research I've done, they are trying to prettify, right? They're trying to glamorize the history of these plantations. Do you remember what is that chef? She was so racist, and you can tell. I forgot her name. Let me stick a video in. She said, "Oh yes, they were having a party. Oh yes, we should have it on some plantation and have people dress up or something talking about slavery." I forgot her name. I'm gonna stick it right in here. And she was canceled too. She's trying to make a comeback, but her ugly ass was canceled.
Across the table, long table, and she said it didn't reach me. And she said, "Here's $100. Go buy your medicine."
All the stories that we've heard about her wanting a plantation wedding that had Black men dressed in suits, concerns about how she treated Black employees, whether or not she used racial slurs. You feel all this is true
Yeah, she wanted Jello Roll and I to dress like that as well.
at the wedding?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like Paula Deen is racist in that way?
I do. I do.
Have you ever heard Paula Deen use the N-word?
I've heard her use the N-word. She say, I tell y'all niggers, that's what's wrong with y'all niggers now today.
Why are you coming forward now to tell your story?
Because they didn't give me what I deserve. They didn't give me nothing I deserve.
But that's the mindset of a lot of these Southern people. It's like they disregard the struggles of Black people and the former enslaved and the enslaved, and try to glamorize the antebellum aesthetic. So a lot of people are happy that this godforsaken structure burned down. A lot of people are claiming paranormal activity. I don't know if you guys see anything. I don't know if do you feel that? Do you feel that the slaves, the ancestors, there was something spiritual going on? I'm not sure, but let's watch these videos.
I've been trying to figure out how to approach this. But if you haven't seen this used to be this. And this is the Nottoway Plantation home, or was the Nottoway Plantation home in White Castle, Louisiana. And just the other day, it burnt to the ground. The cause of the fire is still unknown, but as you can see, it's a complete loss. And the reason I've been trying to figure out how to approach this is because, one, I'm in Louisiana, and there's been a great outpour of sadness for the loss of this legacy. And I wanted to make this video to remind everyone that that plantation home was built by slaves. And the owner was one of the wealthiest slave owners in the South. And when the home was completed, I think it said he had like 158 slaves. He had over 150 slaves when that home was completed, built but with slave labor. Sorry, I've recorded this a few times and I keep going way off the wall and I'm trying to hold it together because this man, and I was going to show his picture, I was going to show his name. That's not the legacy that is lost here, right? Like, he literally was one of the wealthiest slave owners, had, I think at one point I saw something, he had like 200 slaves. When the Civil War started coming into Louisiana and heading their way, not only did he pay to get out of going to war, he left his wife and children in Louisiana at the plantation to try and preserve it, and then he took all the slaves and went to Texas. And then it was turned into an event center where weddings are held, and a museum celebrating Southern grace. I don't know, I'm getting emotional. And we're going to be sad that it burnt to the ground. And I didn't already say this, and I'm already over 2 minutes, so this is the last thing I'll say. There's plenty of videos out there with people talking about this. This was a sugarcane plantation. Not that if it was a cotton plantation it would be any better, but this man came from Virginia, where his family had cotton plantations, and he switched to sugarcane because of its profitability. And I think I read somewhere that he increased his family's wealth like 5 times over by switching to sugarcane. And sugarcane plantations were the worst kinds of plantations. They were grueling. The life expectancy on sugarcane plantations was low because they were out there cutting the sugar cane with machetes, and then they were boiling it down. And when I say they, I mean the slaves. They're the ones that built the financial backing to build a 53,000 square foot home with 64 rooms. And it was their labor and their skill that built all of the beautiful, intricate details of this property. And it was beautiful, it was stunning. But when it existed, when it was a museum, that was one of the things that was really controversial, was that they didn't fully, like, they acknowledged they were built by slaves, but they didn't fully go into what that meant. And then they continued for over 100 years, right, to continue to capitalize off of that slavery. So I think it looks fine.
Okay, so fun story. In 2016, I actually visited the Nottoway Plantation. I was so happy to see yesterday on social media that it had burned down. And if you don't know the history of the Nottoway Plantation, it was built in peak antebellum, 1859. I've researched a lot about this plantation because I was working on a story that I still want to turn into something. I'm not sure what yet. A rewritten version of Beauty and the Beast that involves the horrors of slavery. I feel like it's my duty as someone whose family contributed, because my family was part of my ancestry was part of the family that owned the Belle Grove Plantation, which is just a few miles from where Nottoway was. Belle Grove burned down similarly years and years ago in, I think, the 1950s. They actually had multiple fires and it burned down kind of in stages. So I was researching Belle Grove, and we went to Nottoway because Belle Grove is no longer standing, and it was done by a similar architect so that I could get the same kind of feel for the house and everything. But as we were there, I couldn't help but feel like this just sick feeling, knowing that hundreds of slaves had built this mansion and worked it and died and suffered at this place. And so while we were there, we actually visited this little graveyard on the property. And I just tried to take a moment to kind of like honor those people who have been lost to the horrors of slavery that our country inflicted, that my family historically inflicted, and the shame of that and the guilt of that. And it's one of the things that pushed me into writing this story and trying to challenge and face any sort of internal bias that I might have, that I've been raised with in the South. And so yesterday when I got online and I saw that the Nottoway Plantation had burned down, it filled me with so much like sweet justice, because they never deserved that life. And to see it in ashes and cinders now just makes me happy. And I hope that it's one step towards reclamation for the people that my historic lineage hurt, killed, enslaved, tortured, raped, abused. And I'm so thankful it burned down. I know a lot of other people are freaking out, but it's just architecture. You can rebuild it. You can rebuild it and tell a new story, a better story, without slavery. And actually, if we could build a monument there, maybe to the people who were slaves in that region, why not do that? Why not? We should. We owe it to them, to their family members and their descendants who were standing on the bank and cheering and screaming in joy yesterday. We have to write a better story. So I'm glad that at least this one begins with the burning down of that plantation, because that's fucking justice.
Let me talk about Nottoway Plantation real quick. Listen, I'm white. That's obvious here. But I am not $50,000 wedding at a plantation that slaves built white. That is crazy to me. And if you look up the history of Nottoway Plantation, it's actually incredibly heartbreaking. I just watched a video of a guy that was a tour guide at Nottoway, and he was saying that the script was so strict there, and there were things that he refused to talk about because it was so wrong. Like, they were trying to tell the history about Nottoway Plantation, but a lot of it was not accurate at all. I want to show you a picture, though, of this girl's post that I saw, and it was of Nottoway burning, and she circled all of like the spirits that were leaving Nottoway, and I just could not help but to notice one that I don't think anyone else has noticed. So let me show you. All right, so this is the post that I saw. It was on my FYP, and as you see in the picture, she was circling like all of the spirits that were being let go, right? Freed. I noticed something in this picture that I'm not sure that anyone else noticed. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to show you. We're going to go to the top right, the far right column, and I want you to look at something. Are you seeing what I'm seeing right here? Take a minute to look at the picture. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Does this not look like a massive man standing on the porch, from the porch all the way up to the very top of the house next to this column? That looks like a giant, massive man. I couldn't help but notice it. It was very obvious to me. But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about Nottoway, the history, and its ultimate demise?
I used to be a tour guide at Nottoway Plantation. Nottoway was not talking about history properly. They regularly threatened my job because I was, quote, too emotional about the historical context and slavery there. I was there from 2017 till 2020 when COVID hit. The amount of ridiculous nonsense that I had to talk about on that tour was overwhelming. Dutch people, when they came in, because there were thousands of people from all around the world that would come in, the Dutch people knew more about the history of the transatlantic slave trade than the majority of people that worked at the plantation. I'm glad it burned down. Make no mistake. The type of history that they were teaching there was a bunch of just headline stuff. It was a bunch of buzzword stuff. I mean, honestly. I'm in Facebook groups and looking at people's posts about it being burned down, and the only thing that they're talking about is, this architecture. Oh, did you know that they would hide jewelry in the bedpost? Oh, did you know that these curtains were reproductions of the ones from Gone with the Wind? And the way that the script for the tour was written was framing John Randolph as
something paranormal is happening in this photo. If you don't know, this is the Nottoway Plantation that is going up in flames, or went up in flames, because it is gone, it's charred. But the ancestors was there while it was happening. As the flames were going up, the ancestors were there. And I want to show you how paranormal and freaky this photo is. It is not edited. I want to put a disclaimer out here. This is not edited. This is not tampered with. You can Google this image and you can zoom in for yourself. And I'm going to zoom in right here where the archways are, where the flames are happening, and show you that the ancestors was in attendance. Look at this. I can't make this up. Again, this is unedited. Do you see two figures in the archways? Like, I can't make that up. And so when I seen this, I was like, oh my gosh, there's spirits in that plantation. And it's like right there. Like, your eyes, yes, you can make all the excuses you want, but my eyes are not lying, and I hope you guys see what I see. I see a woman right here, and I see a man right there, okay? It's circled. You can see as clear as day in those archways. I know there's people that's going to dispel it, and that's fine. There's always going to be people who are skeptical, but I see very clearly with my two eyes, I see two spirits. It might be two ancestors. I know it's two ancestors, and they wanted to be a witness to the flames of this place going down, okay? This is a cursed plantation. All plantations are cursed, but they wanted to witness this going down, okay? So tell me what you guys think. But yeah, the ancestors were there singing This Little Light of Mine. I'm going to let it shine. They were there. They were in attendance right here.
Stay with me, because there is some things about this resort and 4-star hotel that burned down that nobody is talking about, and my jaw was literally on the floor. It's very clear that it being a museum is not its main focus. It does seem like they've started giving tours again, but this is for weddings and events. They do have a history tab and a drop-down menu. The only thing you're going to find is a list of 16 majestic oak trees that are found on the property. These oak trees are named, and for a brief moment I was like, oh, are they named after enslaved people? Is this like a memorial? No, it's named after the 11 children of the enslaver. As I was combing through trying to find any information on the enslaved people here, this tab for cottages underneath where you can stay caught my eye. Each cottage has 2 individual units with a single covered porch and oversized rocking chairs, and it's like, oh my god, how tasteless to have something like that on the property given the history. No, I don't think these are fresh cottages. I think they repurposed cabins on site with welcoming beds and full amenities. Oh, thank God. Thank God my slave cabin comes with a hairdryer and an iron. There's at least one of these still around, but this is an unmarked photo. There is no information about this photo. In fact, the only time I saw anything that had anything to do with a person of color were these god-awful candelabras. But with this burning down, we lost a haunted wedding venue at best, and it seems like a place that was literally like Airbnb-ing slave cabins. So,
See, the thing that we forget is that we as Black people live different, vastly different lives from white people. As we grow, right, as Black children, we learn about the horrors of slavery, the horrors we went through during Jim Crow and civil rights. White people in their everyday lives are removed from that. Okay? They're not thinking about us. They're not sharing in our misery, right? In Black people's misery. Most white people do not comprehend, nor honestly, I believe they don't care. They do not care. That's why when these lily white girls and women, it's that those girls that, attend Ole Miss, right? That Ole Miss type, and they go to college to marry. They don't go to college to get a man to get a degree. They get like a little degree, but the number one goal is to get a husband. right? And I've kind of researched that and seen that type. That's the archetype of white womanhood in the South. And a lot of these women, they grew up being prepped to be pretty, southern style, southern hospitality, that plantation type, that Lily Mae, South White, Lily White, they are not thinking about our black asses. So when it does come time to plan their wedding, they're thinking about little tea sandwiches and lemonade, right? And oh, the venue, the backdrop has to be beautiful. What better backdrop than a beautiful, massive mammoth of a construction built on the backs of the blacks? They're not thinking on whose back it was built on. They're thinking about the wedding aesthetic and the lifestyle, and the grandeur. That's what they're thinking about. Look at Paula Dean. That's what her fantasy was, right? And possibly is having black servants. They love that. They 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 indulge in that aesthetic. That Gone with the Wind. That's what they know. Look, Blake Lively and her husband, they came under fire because they got married at a plantation. And I believe Blake Lively comes from a privileged family. She grew up privileged. She's not just an actress who just made it by chance. No, she comes from like affluent stock, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if she's from the South. She might be. Or if she's not from the South, she adopted that aesthetic. A lot of white women love that because a lot of them Southern Lily white girls, they were rich. They are descendants of the plantation owners. They were rich as hell. They're basically American princesses, equivalent to British princesses. They were American princesses. They wear their little bucket hats and collect flowers and just sit pretty and go to the debutante ball and all of that aesthetic. They love it. They love it. They want to emulate that to this day. So they are not thinking about how offensive it is. You live in a country with a whole population that suffered at the hands of the people who owned and directed the erection of these plantation buildings. And they don't care. It's now that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds had to apologize, and they got married some time ago. They didn't get married like last year. But now, because of the whole, and that's a whole other thing with Blake Lively being found out that she's a total bitch, that people are like, oh yeah, well, of course you're a bitch. You got married at a plantation. You don't care about people. You don't care. It's sad, but for some people, it's business as usual. Again, I say we are still being humiliated. It is a humiliation. When you live in a society where people are partying it up, right? At a wedding reception, and there's a building you can look over. A lot of these plantations you look over and the slave quarters the buildings are still there. You can see the slave quarters. And that's how you know a lot of white people are racist in this day and age in 2025. Yes, they don't care. They can hide it. They have an advantage. They can hide it. That's the advantage. Let me know what you guys think. What's really good? Do you think it was in my heart of hearts? I feel like this may have been arson because I'm not celebrating, right? I know as blacks, we like to think that there was some kind of spiritual meaning and celebration. In my mind, honestly, I feel like there could have been arson. Maybe someone didn't want to keep up with the business expenses. It's a business. There's insurance. You best believe there's insurance on this. So the owners are still going to make out. I have to research more, but there's no loss here, you guys. White people in business, they will burn their whole shit up to collect the insurance. You think these people dumb? They know what they're doing. They're gonna collect. They're gonna get theirs somehow, some way. They leaving here with something. They make sure they're protected. So yeah, we can celebrate, at the fact that it burned to the ground. It doesn't erase all of the pain, and the painful meaning of it, right? Um, let's see, that's where I stand on it. I don't know if it's something to be celebrated. I really don't. The date is coincidental, I don't know. As far as the spirits, I do believe in spirits and paranormal. In this case, I don't know if I believe it, but in what case I do believe in the paranormal and something weird is happening? Lake Lanier. That I believe wholeheartedly. Lake Lanier is indeed haunted. They're supposed to come out with a movie. I got to go watch that movie. Lake Lanier, yes. This plantation house, I'm not sure yet. Let me know what you guys think. Any of you guys have visited a plantation? Again, I'm from the Northeast. We have no concept of plantation quarters that I know of up in the north of the United States. If there is, let me know. I don't want to visit, but let me know. I don't know. I do want to visit Louisiana one day. I don't know if Louisiana is a whole, oh God, that's a whole other thing in itself. I do want to visit. I don't know if I want to see a plantation, but let me know what you guys think.